Now that most of us are self-isolating or in some kind of lockdown, we've got plenty of time on our hands. So why not use that time wisely and give our bikes some tender, loving care? Now, some of you may be saying, right, my bike is in perfect working order. It's in no need of any TLC. Well, in this video, we're going to go through some maintenance tips that you may have overlooked, and also some things that you may want to consider doing in lockdown so that you can get your bike in tip-top condition. Yep, don't go chasing waterfalls, baby, baby, baby. Yeah, that was 2 TLC references in the intro, sorry, but I've got a lot of time on my hands. Cleaning is our first one. Now, this might sound like an obvious one, but when was the last time you gave your bike a proper deep clean? I'm talking Mariana Trench deep, like proper deep, right? Because, your bike might look nice and clean, but there's lots of hard to reach areas. So a good thing to do is to take off components that you wouldn't normally take off and then give it a good clean. So like your chain rings, take off your chain and your rear mech, and then you can access the jockey wheels and get all that grinding paste out of there that can accumulate. And I'm gonna do those things, but before I do any of that, and something I'd recommend you do, is just check your chain hasn't become worn and stretched. And the best way to do this is with the chain checker tool. So there's a couple of different sort of designs you can use. Go in the Park tool chest. There's this kind of one that you slot into your chain, and then there's this one which is a bit more sophisticated that gives you a bit more of a measurement of your actual chain wear. So I'm just going to do those now. Using these tools is dead easy. Just plonk them on there, and they'll tell you if your chain if the gaps between the links have become too tight. So you're like, yeah, that's slotting right in on that tool. And on this one, having just checked my chain, I can see that it is massively stretched. It says on the chain checker that it should be replaced at 0.75 of wear. Mine was touching 1. So what I'm going to do is take the bike off the wall, put it in the stand, take the chain off, and then taking the chain off actually gives you much better access to the other little intricate components like the rear mech and also the front mech and the chain rings as well. So we'll do that now. Unlike TLC, I do want some scrubs when I'm doing this job. So the first thing, I'm going to remove my chain. If your chain's got a quick link, you can use quick link pliers to do this. You can actually do a little hack where you actually tie something around the 2 links and then pull them together. A zip tie will do it actually if you've got a little zip tie if you don't have quick link pliers. If you don't have a quick link, then you just have to push one of the pins out using a chain link tool, which often on most multi tools. So we'll take off that. With my chain off now, I'm going to take the rear mech off and give it a really good clean, and then I'll take the chain rings off as well. Take the rear derailleur off. It's usually just an Allen key that you can do on one of the bolts. One of the beauties of a Di2 one as well is you can just undo the cable, just pull it out the socket. On another one, you just undo the cable. With the rear derailleur off, you can now get a really good look at all the gunk that accumulates on it, especially on the jockey wheels and on the inside. You normally can't see these areas. So I'm going to take out the jockey wheels. This is really easy to do. You just get Allen keys or hex wrenches, and you can take off the cage that the jockey wheels are in, then they come out, and you can give them a really good clean. And there you go. As soon as you open this up, you see that there's just gunk in there that you just couldn't normally see. And oh man, like look on my jockey wheels, there's just so much sort of waxy grinding paste dirt on there. That is coming all off. I'm not leaving that on there because I've got my new chain, which is a nice new gold chain. I have to fist pump myself. That's going to go on there. So before I put that on and get that dirty, because if you just put a new chain on without doing this, then all this gunk that's on the little jockey wheels and stuff, that's going to go onto your new chain. We don't want that. One of the ways that I like to get the dirt off these jockey wheels is actually use a flathead screwdriver, so top tip, so you can just, you know, use that to just push off the worst of the dirt, get the worst of the dirt off, and then you can then use, you know, a bit of degreaser and a cloth and a little brush and stuff like that. But initially, getting the worst off, flathead, works really well. There's something immensely satisfying about doing this and getting all your components like proper clean, just getting all this gunk off and knowing that your bike is going to thank you for it and be really nice to ride when it's all perfect. Oh man, it's amazing how much gunk there is. Next up, we're going to talk about lubing and greasing. Now, I'm about to step into a double entendre minefield, so brace yourselves. But fortunately, this isn't my first rodeo. Now, when you talk about lubing, most people just think about applying lube in the usual places, such as your chain. However, there's loads of other places on your bike that will benefit from being properly lubricated, starting with the headset and the bottom bracket. For those areas, you're going to want a nice, thick, high-performance grease. This is something that stops moisture ingress but keeps them running nice and smoothly. Now, it's easy to do. You simply take apart the two bits, clean off the old dirty grease, and apply some nice new stuff. Another good place to lubricate is on the threads of any component that has threads. So any bolts and also your pedals. So if you remove your pedals, strip off the old grease, give them a nice good clean and apply some anti-seize grease on there. This stops the threads sticking when you want to undo them at a later date and just helps look after them. It's a good thing to do. And the other form of lubrication that can be really beneficial is just using some PTFE spray like WD-40. Now, Simon Richardson, you don't use this on your chain. It's not chain lube, okay? But it does have uses in other parts of your bikes. So hard to reach areas with little intricate components, things like derailleurs are a classic example, and the little pivots in brakes are also really useful, and also for helping to lubricate cables. You can actually spray it on the inside of cable housing as well. Now this is useful, but you have to be careful. You don't want to liberally spray this around like it's Febreze or air freshener, because it is does contain solvents, and what these solvents will do will dissolve away, like a degreaser, the thick grease in areas where you want to keep that thick grease, such as your bottom bracket. Also be careful of spraying it on brake tracks and braking surfaces, as it can limit the performance of them as well. Another area of your bike that benefits from high performance grease is your free hub. Now, contrary to popular belief, a noisy free hub isn't always a healthy free hub. Ooh. I mean, noisy free hubs can sound pretty cool, but they can be too noisy. If your free hub sounds like a Harley Davidson or like an angry swarm of bees chasing you around, then there's a good chance that it's too dry and there's not enough grease in there. So what you should do is take it apart, remove the cassette, take off the free hub body and repack it full of grease, give it a good old clean. Now it's fairly simple to do, more simple than you might imagine, and we've actually made some really good videos on it as well. Lloydie's got one, which we'll link to in this video. Essential tools that you will need though are going to be a lock ring tool, a chain whip, some kind of wrench, and also usually Allen keys to remove the free hub body. Although some free hub bodies can be removed by hand, such as DT Swiss ones. The next thing we'd suggest is checking that everything is nice and tight. Now this is especially important on areas such as, your seat post clamp, your saddle rails, and your headset. These are areas that receive a lot of stress and can work loose over time. Now, while you're going around and tightening everything and making sure that it is the correct torque, always use a torque wrench. And again, this is super important on carbon components, often seat posts and, you know, well, your headset as well if you're clamping onto a carbon steerer, as over tightening them can damage them and cause them to crack. So a torque wrench stops you doing that. I'm just going to fit my new gold chain to my bike now. And as I do it, I'm just going to give you a few tips and show you my method for getting the chain length right. There are a number of different ways you can do this, but this is my preferred method. I actually learnt it off Sheldon Brown. Anyhow, let's have a look. So the way I do it is thread the new chain around the big chain ring, and then thread it around the big ring on the cassette, but I don't thread it through the derailleur, so you can see it's just hanging. Then what I do is I pull the chain so that it's together on the cassette, like this, and then you want to get a complete link of overlap. So if you look here, that's a female end of the chain and that's an outer plate. So I would want to break the chain there. As here, I have a complete link of overlap. And that is where that bit is going to connect to that bit. However, I am going to be using a quick link, which will take the place of this link here. So I'm actually going to break it here on that pin there, and then remove all the rest of this chain. This bit is chain I don't need, so we're going to take that off. Get my new quick link. Now, when that's done, thread your chain through the rear derailleur. Right now is also a great opportunity to maintain and check your tyres. Now, if you're running tubeless tyres, you might need to update the sealant because sealant does go off over time. Now, how long it takes to go off, bit of a how long is a piece of string question, depends on all sorts of factors. But to check it, you can, you know, take off your tyres, clean the inside of them, remove the sealant through the valve core if it's still good sealant in there. And a good way to do this is with a syringe, particularly useful if you live in an apartment like me and you know you're going to be doing your maintenance from inside. You don't want to get it everywhere all over the carpet and stuff. It can be quite a messy job. Fortunately, Mavic wheels like these ones, they actually come with a syringe, which is pretty useful for replacing and also injecting new sealant into your tyres. Now, I'm not running tubeless. These are tubeless wheels, but I want to run these P0 tyres, which aren't tubeless tyres. So I'm running latex inner tubes in there at the moment. But irrespective of the tyre system and inner tube system you're using, it's always good to just have a look at your tyres, give them a nice close inspection, run them round and just check there are no cuts or slices in your tyre which are going to cause you a problem further down the line. I've momentarily put the F12 on the wall and brought in the Ooyy TT bike because I want to talk about bar tape. I've got something to show you. Yep, I wish I was that ripped. Anyhow, too many of us ride with ripped, damaged or stinky bar tape and it's relatively inexpensive to replace. Replacing it also just makes your bike feel great. A bit like replacing getting some new tyres on there, puts a new lease of life into it. And with a lot of the indoor training a lot of us are doing right now, it's going to absorb a lot of sweat and get quite stinky. So rewrap your bar tape. What I'm going to do is actually try something else on this one. So the reason why I'm going to take this bar tape off, but what I want to try is putting some skateboard tape strips on the TT bike as well, a bit like what we see on a lot of pro bikes. It's something I've never done and I want to try it out for myself, but I don't have any skateboard tape at the moment. So I'm going to get some ordered and I'm going to give it a whirl. So I think the ripped, minging, stinky bar tape will have to stay on there a few more days. Sorry about that. Right, I hope you found this video useful and we've given you some good tips and ideas of things you can do on your bike to get them in absolute tip-top mint condition for when we can do epic rides again. Let us know in the comments what you decide to do to your bike, and also if there's anything that we've not included in this video as well. It's not an exhaustive list. And then when you have got your bikes in absolutely mint condition, well, there's only one thing to do, and that is to take a picture of it, submit it on the GCN app for the Bike Vault, and then we can judge it to be nice or super nice, which is exactly what I'm going to go and do now with my bike. Now it's got its nice gold chain on it. I mean, fingers crossed this gets me a super nice. That's what it's all been about this whole time, just trying to get that super nice. Desperate.